What is going on? It is Daniel with Cuervo ATV, and today we are talking about the now consistent failure of kibble white valve springs. So, what's been going on with kibble white valve springs and the Raptor 700 is a very hit or miss story of success and failure over the years. To the point where we've completely gotten away from running any of the kibble white springs in anything. So this is kind of a bit of a troublesome issue that wasn't always that way. So kind of a back history on what we've ran, what we've done with them, and where we started is getting into the Raptor 700, more higher lift drag stuff, early 2008, 2009 time frame, running the Web 290, doing our 50-50, 5150, ultimately 5250, and 5350 cam, which is up to a 530 lift. We ran on kibble whites with very little problems. We hadn't seen a spring break all the way through. Probably the first one I personally saw had an issue was in 2012, I believe, 11 or 12. So we had a good run there, and even installing up to, they spec these at 480 lift, and even running up to 530, obviously checking specifically and setting them up to run that 530 lift. We were running a tie intake valve at 530 lift, revving these things to 10,000 RPM without a problem. Exhaust side, a +2 valve, 460 or 480 lift on that camshaft, revving up to 10,000, no problem. So the first failure we seen was in a dune bike with a 500 lift camshaft, and it broke the intake rocker. And this was broke the intake valve spring, kibble white. And this was a customer who just constantly drag raced the bike. That's all they did with it. It's +2 head, running them to 9,000 RPM is where we set the limiter at, or factory rev limiter at that point in time. So this was 2012. We seen that one. We seen another one. I forget at that time if it broke the outer spring or inner spring. There's two springs here, an outer and an inner, that helps with harmonic and dampening, as well as additional spring pressure, but mainly for harmonics. So what was going on there? At that point in time, I had been dealing with the RD Spring Company for a while. Wasn't happy with the other options on the market, and I believe it was in that range that RD Spring started doing their high lift dual spring kit, which they spec at, I believe they're spec'd at 540. I have to look back, but there's been quite a few revisions on these spring kits. The ones that come with now actually have a laser engraving on them. I'll show you this other one here that was an older generation that this actually has a steel retainer versus a tie retainer. So there's been revisions and different deals from RD Spring. Some of these are machined just directly flat across the top, but that's kind of a good indicator of that particular spring kit. So we started getting off topic, but a little bit, I guess, but we started running the RD springs on the intake valve of the +2, 2012. Started running those on not all the heads, but started putting them on there. Eventually decided somewhere in 2014 to keep with that and keep the RD spring on the intakes of the plus twos exclusively. And in doing so, we were able to increase the rev limit when we needed to bump them up. So what happened from there is we go down a few years later and we start seeing a failure here and there on the exhaust side of the plus two was very uncommon. I've seen one or two in that few years span. So then we started probably probably switched over to RD spring on intake and exhaust as an option or as an upgrade in like the 2016. Started offering that as an option for guys who are just drag racing, and the heads that had tie intake valves would get that spring kit. So as we increase and go forward and know more and see more and do more on these heads, we get into like 2020. Now these springs, this is one of our very first CNC plus two heads in 2020 that came out, the 2015 and above, and it had kilowatt exhaust valves. Now I took this head apart because it needed a head gasket. It was starting to seep on the head gasket, and so somewhere in that time frame, early 2020, had a local guy that just drag races again. A lot of RPM on his bike. We had it turned up. We started seeing he broke both of his exhaust springs. So his build was, or his head was from like late 18 or so. One of the hand ports, and he broke both of the exhaust springs. So once I seen that, we started switching over all of our CNC plus two heads to the RD springs on the exhaust now as well. So CNC and the hand port, but same deal. All the plus two heads all got RDs. So from there, I was considering like, okay, what is the deal? What's going on? What's the failure point? So we started looking at, initially I was like, okay, well, the plus two intake valve, maybe it's a valve flow issue with the spring. It can't handle the weight of the valve. That was initial for a lot of years, and that was the answer, and no failures. And we started seeing exhaust side, and it's a lot lighter valve, less valve lift. It's only 460 lift, and the valve's fairly light. So started looking at it a bit more conservatively and started doing our plus one heads with the option of RD springs on the intake side, and ultimately ended up with I think about a year and a half ago, as we could get enough supply of RD springs. That's what's kind of another issue in this whole thing, is like if we were getting enough supply of RD springs. So eventually I called and talked to RD and said, hey, I need a constant supply of these that I can count on, and I'll switch everything, all of our heads, over to RD springs. So this was somewhere in the year and a half ago range, switching over, not consistently throughout because we still had some supply issues, but we switched everything over if we had availability, plus ones and plus two heads, to RD springs. So no longer running the kilowatts at all. So, but what I seen over like shortly after, I've seen in over the last year, I've seen a huge rush or issue of these kilowatts just completely falling apart nonstop. So plus one head, plus two heads, heads we did, heads other people did. Just it seemed like every bike that came in the door had broken springs. So nothing else has really changed. Obviously, Corona changed a lot of things for a lot of companies, but I pretty much consider these trash now. Like this particular head, I had talked to the customer. I'm like, hey, it's before I even knew these were broken. I'm like, we got the head off. Let's do that upgrade because I've seen too many of them fail at this point, and that's the newest upgrade to make the head up to the standards of what we sell now. So since we have it off, so sure as can be, I pull these off, and we have both of them broken on the exhaust side. So don't buy these. I don't know what their deal is. It's definitely not just a batch issue, because it's flying out left and right out of every corner of these things broken. I've actually replaced two motors, spring kits in the motors where it had broken both spring kits. Now, they don't warranty their stuff. None of the performance stuff is warranted. But what we're going to do is, if you have something from us within the last year that happened to get kibble white springs and you bought that head within the last year, we're going to replace those springs for you. So there's a ton of guys out there with our head packages. But what I want you to do is, if you have a head with kibble whites, I want you to go and look in there. You may need to put a screwdriver down in there and pull on these springs and make sure that they're not broken. So it's a little hard to see for sure, but get a flashlight, look in the head, get down in there and really try and see. But if you have the head off for any reason, I want you to have whoever's working on it or you're working on it, pull those springs out. And we're going to have supply of RD springs. They are expensive. They're almost double the cost of a kibble white kit. So that's a lot of the reason why our head packages have increased in price over the last 2 years, is the cost of springs and doing the modifications that we do to support those springs and make it all live. So beware of the kpmi. This stuff is not holding up at all. I don't know what their deal is. I'm not going to bother looking into trying to fix it, because obviously they don't seem to know how to make a spring that will live. You see one too many of something and they just call it quits with whatever's coming out of that company. So that is what we have going on today. Like I said, if you have something within a year from us that has kibble whites, we're going to replace those springs for you. And this is, we're at the end of April 2023. So back to April of 2022, we're going to take care of you. If you have a head package from us from an earlier date, we will probably discount a spring kit for you. It's kind of call me and we'll discuss it. There's really no warranty in this market at all, like I said before, but that's what we're going to try to do to help our customers out and spread the word on this. I've been waiting for a while to do this video because I just needed more information. I needed to see a bit more of what was going on, a bit more usage case. Was it dependent on a certain cam profile, or was it intakes, or was it a certain window of time? And I get batch issues and that kind of stuff, but seems like it's all gone to crap, and there hasn't been a time period of, oh, these are bad in this window, or something happened, or whatever it is. It seems to be very random, but throughout the whole industry, +1, +2. I haven't seen a lot of like stock valve stuff come in, but there's no reason to put kibble whites on, say, like a hot cam. There's no reason to do that. A lot of eBay sellers are trying to sell that as an upgrade. Definitely not an upgrade. So that is what we have for today. I want you to comment with a picture if you have broken kibble whites. Actually, I don't know on YouTube if you can do video comments or not, but either way, shoot a comment if you run across this. Spread the word, let people know. We're going to try and keep stock of the RD Springs as much as possible. I'm sure they will get flooded because of this and have been in the past, but we want to be and are making the most premium head package on the market. And that's where we stand. If there's a better product, we're going to offer or change out the whole line to accommodate the better product. So our +1 head, +2 heads are all on RD stuff. Our +3 heads are on RD stuff. Kind of all matters what you get, but we are, as of somewhere in the last year, we are completely away from kibble whites altogether. So a little bit of rambling on, long video. Thanks if you're still watching. Spread the word, and we will talk to you on the next one.